It's beautiful.
Supervisor Rogers, we're live.
Okay. This meeting of the Madera County Board of Supervisors now called to order. And County Council, are there any additions to the agenda?
There are no additions to today's agenda.
Okay, let the record reflect that Supervisor Poitras is not present on business. And for the county, he's doing his job, so couldn't be here today. Would you like to read the closed session items into the agenda?
Yes, Chairman. On the agenda for your closed session today is your conference with labor negotiators. Your designated representatives are Roman Noriega, Joel Begay, and Susan Carter. The employee organization is all units, and the unrepresented employees will also be discussed, excluding elected officials. That's all classifications under Government Code Section 54957.6.
Any public comment on this item? Anyone online? Anyone online? Okay, thank you. Well, with that, we'll go to closed session.
at the bar.
Okay, we're back from closed session. County Council, is there anything to report from closed session?
Chairman, there are no reportable actions from your closed session.
Okay, no reportable actions. At this time, we'll call ourselves to order with the opening our meeting in memory of. Is there anyone that would like to, for someone? Okay, so with no one on the agenda as far as that goes, I'd like to just say, let's continue to remember our men and women in our armed forces and support them in our thinking today. We open our meeting. And we have a pastor present for,
Yes, sir. We have Pastor Mike with Harvest Community Church.
very good. Glad to have you here this morning. Invocation for us, let's all stand. And I'll ask Melissa if she would be willing to lead us in the flag salute. Go ahead, sir.
Let's pray. God of light, God of love, God of life, you are indeed the giver of all good gifts, and we thank you today for all your blessings, the successes in our community, and even the challenges that bring growth. Lord, we remember those who are serving in our military around the world, in the middle of conflict, in the middle of peaceful places. But Lord, we ask that you watch over them, protect them, give them safety, give their families the assurance that their lives are in your hands. We thank you for that. I thank you for this Board of Supervisors and ask that you endow each one with wisdom, courage, and strength. Be with them in their deliberations to seek guidance from beyond their experience in order to make decisions for the good of all those who have placed their trust and confidence in their leadership. Give them insight to lead with integrity so that their decisions will reflect what is good, true, and beautiful. Help them to keep the big picture in view while remembering the needs of the individual in Madera County. Grant each member of the Board of Supervisors with the humility of a servant's heart. I ask these things in your good and gracious name. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible. We're going to go a little off agenda as far as the order and go straight to item 6H for the sheriff. He needs to get out of the room this morning, so I want to take care of that first.
Thank you, Chairman. I really appreciate that. Morning, members of the board. I'm Sheriff Tyson Pogue. We're here today. As you know, we've been hit with a compounding storm system. These last three systems have brought record-breaking snowfall and hazardous conditions to our mountain communities. These conditions have resulted in evacuations, collapsed buildings, impassable roadways, power outages, and snow accumulations, the likes we have never seen. We have about 350 miles of roadways that Public Works is working tirelessly to clear and maintain. At one point, we had 13,000 homes without power. PG&E worked day and night and have restored the majority of our residences. We're dedicating all available resources to responding to requests for assistance and preparation for the next system. Deputies have been out in the field and around the clock delivering supplies, evacuating residents, and providing welfare checks. The sheriff's officers responded to about 100 search and rescue and evacuation assistance calls. We've handled about 300 calls for service related to the storms, and we've completed nearly 100 requests from people requesting we check the welfare of someone in the community. We do have an incident management team established to respond to, mitigate, and recover from these storm systems. Our emergency operations centers at the sheriff's headquarters has been activated at level 1, which means it's staffed and physically open. On the back end, the amount of work and coordination is rarely seen, but it is impressive. We brief every day at 8 a.m. We meet with community leaders and stakeholders every day at 10 a.m. We have several meetings throughout the day to establish goals and priorities and follow those with tactics meetings to find ways to carry out those goals and priorities. We have a final planning meeting each day at 5 p.m. to finalize the mission tasks and objectives for the following day. The planning team then creates the tasking orders for the teams for the following day, and logistics requests whatever resources are needed to carry that out. Those teams receive those orders at the briefing the following morning at 8 a.m. And then the cycle starts again. This will continue every day until the hazardous conditions subside. Yesterday, we shifted gears and are now preparing for the snow melt and atmospheric river set to impact later this week. In the next couple of days, we're focusing on several things. We're establishing and expanding sandbag locations, equipment, and personnel. Once finalized today, those locations will be sent out to the public. We're arranging special equipment and supplies to help fill bags and personnel to assist in filling and monitoring the locations. We're analyzing historical data and models for flooding. We're working closely with your board's Department of Water and Natural Resources. We're installing and monitoring river sensors. These sensors give us instant flow rates, and we're installing cameras to monitor areas historically known to flood. When this event starts, we will physically send personnel to look at the rivers. They evaluate the conditions, looking at the flow rates, the levels, and the clarity. One thing we watch for is the water clarity. If the water suddenly becomes extremely polluted, it's an indication that there's debris flow or mudslide upstream. We're also inspecting culverts and bridges and sending equipment out to remove debris that will compound or result in flooding. I'll let Economic Development Director Matt Schreiber expand on that shortly. We have seen some remarkable work by first responders, public works, contractors, community partners on the front lines serving our community. I'm extremely proud of the work they do every day. Their innovation, kindness, and professionalism never fails to impress me. So the extreme weather has strained our local resources and necessitates a proclamation of local emergency in order to protect and maintain our standard level of public protection within the county. The governor has also declared a disaster for Madera County. A local state of emergency is a formal request to our state representatives for assistance. Our request has been sent to California OES. If your board ratifies the proclamation, they'll look at the county budget in an effort to make a determination what costs can be absorbed by the county. This is called the county threshold. You'll hear that referenced often during discussions of whether or not to proclaim an emergency. The number changes as it's on a sliding scale depending on the budget year and what our county budget is. On the back end of these declarations, a lot of work is done in short order. We'll need to have the projected costs of 6 months to Cal OES. These are extraordinary costs, so it does not include staff time nor routine daily costs. After the review by the declarations unit, it goes to the governor's desk and he reviews as well to determine whether or not the county meets the need for state funding. If authorized, state funding would allow the California Disaster Assistance Act, and this would cover about 75% of the county's costs. And then the public assistance from the state kicks in. Allowable costs are typically equipment such as vehicles, full-time employee overtime, and any extra help employees. Regular employee time and administrative time is not typically eligible costs. We still have to track that time, but we do not get reimbursed. The only agency that eligible for public assistance is the County of Madera. All of the cities, private districts, or joint powers of authority will need to declare their own emergency or go directly to Cal OES regarding their costs. Our county employees from any department are eligible costs, but they have to be tracked on an activity log and document all of those daily actions. Time cards, time studies, those are generally not accepted. We have to report what they did each day in order to get back the costs on those incidents. Clearly, this incident and the next heavily impacts our water district, our waterways and roads. I'd like to invite Community Economic Development Director Matt Schreiber up here, and he's going to expand on the amazing work that's being done in both response to the snow and in preparation for the next event.
While Matt's coming up, I just want to thank our sheriff, most excellent sheriff, and the people that work under him. There's been many community volunteers that have stepped up to help. Got a few phone calls from dairymen in the local area that have loaders that said, hey, we have new loaders, we have manpower, we can go up there, and they did it. And that's just, above and beyond. Really appreciate these people and appreciate all you do. Thank you, Sheriff. Let's give my hand. Matt Schreiber, go ahead.
Thank you, Sheriff and Board. Matt Schreiber, Chief of Development Services. So again, just to add a little bit, certainly the sheriff did a complete update there. I don't have anything to really add other than Public Works. We continue to analyze and shift resources where needed. When we do get calls for services there, we are plugged in with the sheriff's office and Office of Emergency Service. We began yesterday shifting many resources into a flood prevention, flood risk assessment that we have on the mountain. We still have 24/7 crews working for snow removal, focused primarily in the smaller, narrower subdivisions that we have in there to try to open those up to get access for folks for supplies and propane and the like. So again, crews are mobilized. We have on site up in the mountains in eastern Madera County, 77 pieces of equipment. The majority of those are loaders and skid steers working to clear that. And again, shifting those resources starting again yesterday and through today into a flood prevention and removing down trees from sides of roads and trying to remove as much debris from channels as possible. Culverts, checking all of our bridges here on the valley. So you'll start to see some of those resources mobilizing down here to the foothills to get ready for the next. So thank you.
Matt has also worked tirelessly, called me, I think the other night, almost around 8 o'clock. He let me know what was going on. I said, I really have a high regard for Matt and his team as well. I'd like to give Public Works and Matt Trieber a hand.
Yes, go ahead.
Chair, the item for the board is to consider adoption of a resolution ratifying the declaration of local emergency for the February-March 2023 winter storms proclaimed by Sheriff Pogue on March 1st, 2023.
Thank you. I was going to read that in if it didn't get taken care of, but I appreciate you doing that, County Council. Thanks for catching us up. Go ahead, Sheriff.
In closing, I just want to give a special shout out and a sincere thank you to all of our community partners, but especially to CAL FIRE. They've come in and they've really helped us and just been an amazing asset to us. McCombs and Trinidad, they are amazing individuals and we're so appreciative. So
You bet.
very, very grateful for them. And with that, I'll turn it over to you for questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions from the board at this point?
I just
Go
have
ahead.
one comment, because I hear stories about, our workers and our affiliate subcontractors and working 16 hours a day. I've heard stories of these people who are sleeping not at their home, but they are away from their families, sleeping in metal buildings without heat, just so they can be up there and continue the work the very next day. And the dedication for some of these folks. And when there is a true disaster or when there is an emergency, how this community comes together. And you don't have to just live up in the mountain region, but we have, like he mentioned, and it's been really great to see how the community comes together and works tirelessly and goes above and beyond, because like our public works employees, these folks really care. They genuinely care. And they know that the responsibility to get these people resources and clear the roads is on them, and they take it personally. And so I'm just so thankful for our public works department and our workers and our contractors. Thank you.
Well said, sir. Anyone else?
Yeah,
ahead.
not really sure where to start. It's been a hell of a couple weeks, to say the least, with all the snow coming in. When Friday initially hit, I actually got stuck in the storm a couple times heading back from Sacramento when Jordan and I were over at our supervisors training. So it's been a long couple weeks, like I said, but I do want to thank the sheriff for all his leadership, organizing, making sure that all our resources are, properly deployed. Want to give a big shout out to Matt Trieber for all his responsiveness to all the different concerns that we've received. Of course, Phil Toller, as well as Jared Carter and Jeremy with the road department and so on down the line. So everybody's been amazing, like you said. And I just kind of want to hone in on one thing that the sheriff said, which was that, PG&E has been able to restore power, I think, just about to every single home in eastern Madera County, which is a testament to the coordination and the work that went in. If you look to the north up in Mariposa and the south down to Fresno, they're still struggling to get power back on. And a lot of the different residents and subdivisions. And a lot of that is because those counties haven't had the ability to get their roads clear like we have. So again, just a testament to our team and all the work they've been doing. So thanks again.
Right.
And so unless Supervisor, you have anything to say?
No, just thank you. Excuse me. Yeah, I too really appreciate all the efforts. My sister's in Grass Valley and she's been snowed in for a couple of, for some time. She hasn't had power for a week either. And I've asked her about the efforts that their county, just comparing what other counties are doing, and the amount of work that Madera County has done has been tremendous. So it's very much appreciated, seen, and sincerely appreciate everything.
So with that, move to approve?
I'll second.
Made in second. I'm going to take this out to the public for any public comment. Is there any public to comment? Public online? Thank you. Okay, a roll call vote, please.
Supervisor McCauley,
Yes.
Supervisor Gonzalez.
Yes.
Supervisor Wamhaugh,
Yes.
Supervisor Rogers,
Yes.
motion approved 4-0.
Thank you very much.
One absent. Supervisor Poitras is at the COG, of which he's president, and that's a organization we represent on Council of Governments. Okay, with that, we'll go to public comment. Clerk to read that in.
The first 15 minutes of each regular session is set aside for members of the public to address the board on any matter under the jurisdiction of the board, but not appearing on the agenda. The board will not take action on any items presented under public comment. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Anyone addressing the board is asked to print their name clearly on the speaker sheet at the podium and state their name and county of residence for the record.
Is there any public here to address the board at this time? So come forward. No one? No one online? We have one online.
We have John Hero.
Okay, John, go ahead.
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
I was trying to get a comment in on the declaration of emergency. I just had a couple questions. First, hats off to Sheriff Pogue and the Public Works Department for all the work they've been doing. But I guess the biggest question I have is, I live up in Awani, up near Nipawasi, and we have had over 36 inches of snow. We don't live on a public road. We live on a right-of-way road. And the problem is, unfortunately, some of the people here are not prepared. And so I've used my tractor, my neighbors use his tractor to try to dig people out. But the question I have is, we have a couple people that are completely stranded, no way to get to them. I can't use my equipment because it's just not good enough. How or who do we call, or is there anyone to call, especially on the non-public road? For example, I called the sheriff yesterday because there were 2 cars that were stuck on the road and people couldn't get by. Who do we contact, or is there a way to contact somebody to try to get some heavy equipment in there or something to unplug the roads and pull cars out and things like that? So appreciate your answer on that.
Okay, John, we ordinarily don't comment on public comment, but we're going to do it in this case because that's related to the last item.
Well, I was trying to get in on the last item, but they didn't unmute me. So
But we've got the sheriff and Matt Trieber here to answer your questions. So go ahead, Sheriff and Matt.
Thank you, Chairman. If I can ask the person, I'm sorry, I was outside, I didn't catch the name, but if they can call our office and explain the situations, what's going on, or call 311, we'll send that to the team and see if we can't get somebody out there to evaluate that and see if there's anything we can do. It does make it more difficult being a private road, but we're making every effort to accommodate those requests. So give us a call and let's see if we can't take care of it. At minimum, we definitely want to go check on the people down there.
Very good. Very good. You get that, John?
yeah, I got that. I did call the sheriff yesterday office, and they says, well, if it's not on a public road, then we probably can't do anything about it. So I literally had to take my tractor up there and pull his car or get the car out, and then had to pull another truck out. But we have a person they were on oxygen and their power was out, and we couldn't get to them. So
Yeah, if it's an emergency like that, I would call 911 or not 911, but I'd call the sheriff's department right away and they'll dispatch something.
We'll check in with the communication center, make sure that the directives are clear as to how to handle those situations. And I have Mr. Perro's phone number. I'll give him a call also separately.
okay,
Very good.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Very good. Thank you, sir.
Chairman,
Any-
we have Dan Metz.
Okay, go ahead, Dan.
Thank you very much, Dan Metz, Oakhurst. I just want to echo Sheriff Pogue's comments about a hearty thank you to everybody who responded in these storms. And he's already listed most of the agencies that responded. And I wanted to acknowledge that County Public Works, they mobilized a large number of contractors, and it was helpful to us. They had to do a do-over because once they cleaned the roads, it snowed again, and they had to plow it again on a day or two later. So just hats off to everybody. It kind of reminds me of an injury on the body. Whenever there is an injury, a cut or a wound of some kind, all the white blood cells rush in to do a healing process. And that reminds me of the thousands of people who responded to our situation here in the mountains. And I just want to say thank you. I'm sorry I don't know all thousands names, but certainly the people there at the road department deserve a thank you. And we've already said that, but anyway, thank you to everyone.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate the comment. We will be recognizing especially volunteers later on who have committed their time and efforts to helping other people. That's that makes them heroes to us, and we appreciate them. And CAL FIRE, I want to thank CAL FIRE. They've been, as Sheriff Pogue said, we really appreciate all that they've done. We don't want to be redundant, but we don't want to be remiss. Certainly, we're grateful, and we should be, for all that's done. And there's coming more opportunity to help in the near future here. So thank you again. Any other public comment? Okay. Okay, with that, we'll go to the consent calendar. We're going to remove one item that has
To your honor.
item V, isn't it?
Yep.
Yes.
Chair, if I may, item V is a resolution reaffirming the local emergency related to the Creek Fire. The board, this was a misprint. The board terminated that emergency at its board meeting on February 28th. There is a request also to remove item R, and that's a resolution from our public health officer, Dr. Paul, related to that same Creek Fire. To ensure that we get all of our paperwork absolutely correct, we will be bringing back termination of the local health emergency by Dr. Paul at your next board meeting, just to shore up what you approved on the 28th. So the request at no concern for reimbursement is to remove items R and V.
Okay, very good. Any supervisor wish to remove and discuss separately any items? Go ahead, sir.
Like to remove item 5G, the Measure T reimbursement item.
Okay. 5G will be
For discussion.
removed for a separate discussion. Any other items? Concern?
Yeah, I was hoping Jeannie might be able to come up and give us some more information on item AD. And then also wanted to make a quick comment on items J, K, L, M, and N, which are all pertaining to the library department. Just want to give a special thanks to Krista for all the work she does. It seems like every agenda, we've got some kind of item on the consent calendar, accepting some unanticipated revenue for the library department. Seems like she just does a fantastic job putting together her budget and building that budget. So thanks again,
Yeah, I
Krista.
agree.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, congratulations on your continued success for the library. We thank you for that. Very good.
Yeah, I agree. It was very notable. So thank you, Krista, for all the programming that you're doing out there in the library. I don't think it's advertised enough. I mean, it is because I follow the library page, but you're doing such a great job out there. Really appreciate it.
We'll work backwards on that. We'll have, since I see Jeannie up here, AB first, or if you have any questions on that, go ahead.
Good morning.
Morning, how are you?
I'm doing fabulous, except for everything flooding, and now we're switching over from drought to flood. It's like
Yeah.
whiplash in our department right now.
Kind of a semi-good problem, huh?
Yes, exactly. Go back and forth. Let's see what we can do now. I think Supervisor McCauley had a question on AD.
Yes.
which was the contract for David's Engineering for the Madera GSP revisions. And basically, it's a necessary contract to get the Madera GSP revised. And I know the question was based on what happened with Chowchilla this last week, or this week. I think it was this week.
Saturday, I think.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
like, everything's happening all at once. DE is going to, they were going to bring the revision, Madera GSP revision to the board on next week, which is March 14th. They've now pushed it. We're reposting it, we're renoticing it. It's going to be coming back March 21st because they're taking a look at the deficiencies that were found in Chowchilla. There were 3
Right.
deficiencies found. And prior to all of that, we met with DWR
I know.
6 times. And, and it seemed like everything was fine, but surprise, surprise, it was not. So they're going to go back and read the GSPs that did pass and tweak the Madera revision. So that's why they needed the additional week. They're just like jumping on it. So we should see it come back March 21st. That's when it's due. So we're going to try to get it pushed through so we can send it in and be on time still.
Right.
I mean, if need be, we'd ask for an extension, but right now I think we can get it done. And so that's what we're working for. And that's why that contract is necessary, so they can jump in and keep doing that. And it's paid for by a grant. It's paid for by Prop 68 funds. So their contract will be. So
Right. Okay, thank you. Any other questions on
any
that?
questions?
Okay, very good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bet.
Judy.
Bet.
Thanks for clarifying that. That's good. Okay, go ahead with your item, Supervisor. Wimhoff?
5G, just wanted to note publicly this item and what it actually implies, and just for the general public to know what's going on with this dollar amount figure.
Good morning, Rebecca Martinez, Clerk Recorder, Elections. I'm not sure what the question is.
More just an explanation of this item, just a brief overview of this item.
So
and
what
it
we're-
actually implies.
What we're trying to do is to replenish our budget to the tune of $97,000. At the time that the Measure T was placed on the ballot, we just used whatever money we had to put that measure onto the ballot. It was quite expensive to run Measure T in November, and we billed out, but we cannot collect any money for the Measure T because it failed. So all we're trying to do now is to put the money back that we spent, some of the money back that we spent to put on Measure T, we need back into our budget because no money was allocated at the point that they called for the election.
Thank you. And just to be clear, there's 300, the total election cost $343,000.
It was more than that.
Okay.
The election itself was more than that. The 343,000 was strictly attributable to the Measure T costs.
Gotcha. And the request from the department is $97,000 because since the measure did not pass, no funds were collected from MCTC.
We
correct?
cannot recoup. We're hoping that when they run the measure again, that there's provision in the next resolution to recover the past bill, if you will, for 22.
Great. That's all I had. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Any other items of interest to any supervisors? Okay, let's take this out to the public. Any questions on the consent calendar from the public? Or online?
We have 4 online. John
Okay, John Farrow.
Farrow,
Okay, John is one, and then who else?
Sue O'Connor, followed by Dan Metz, and then Andrea Uribe.
Okay, so let's start with John.
Oh, hi. So I just had on 5E, it said consideration entering with self-help enterprise, extending the original term to 5 years or when the project funding is depleted. I looked through the agenda on that it was a little unclear what's going on there. What was the original agreement and why is this being changed? So just would appreciate some clarification on that.
Okay.
Good
Amy?
morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Jamie Bax with Community and Economic Development. I have Annette Kephart with me as well. Yes, there is a 2019 contract with Self-Help Enterprises that was entered into, and this amended contract would update that contract basically. And we have copies of that and are happy to send that to whoever would like to review it.
Well, I guess the question is why are we updating it? What changed? Why do we need to update it?
We're asking for a time extension to extend it out to allow for, because the grants are actually due by July of this year. And it's to allow for self-help to continue work on that grant from the 2017 grant.
Okay.
We've had a long-term relationship with Self-Help Enterprises on CDBG and the revolving fund. There's several $1 million in that fund, and that continues to be brought out to and used by the public and then reimbursed as houses or change ownership and what have you. So there's a lot of good things that come. It's one of those good programs that just is upgrading the community as well as continuing to fund itself. So it's kind of cool. Thank you.
And John, just so you're aware, you know, if you go onto the Self-Help Enterprise website, they have a lot of information about that rehabilitation.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Just to learn more about it. It's all there.
Okay, next Sue O'Connor.
Hi.
Sue?
Hi, this is Sue. I have a question regarding 5Y, which is the help for the agreement with Tetra Tech. And my question is related to, we've had several fires in Madera County. Is this something that is only happening for the Fork Fire? Is this something that the county is looking to do for the tree removal and everything that they're trying to do for the Fork Fire? Are they going to do this for other fire areas? And if not, why not? And then was this a FEMA fire? Because I see that it says, you know, that you're looking to perhaps get money reimbursement from FEMA if it applies, but does FEMA apply to the Fork Fire? And is there a list of recipient people who will receive benefit from this action?
Go ahead, sir.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. Joseph Weiler, the Sheriff's Office for Sheriff Pogue. In regards to the question, this is a state declared event, so the funding is coming from the state. So we did meet the threshold as Sheriff Pogue referred to earlier for this event. So the funding, 75% of the funding is coming from the state to do the cleanup. And this is a state-run cleanup, a state-assisted cleanup program. So they are providing a lot of the technical assistance and updated information. Currently, regarding the FEMA question, FEMA is still in the process of reviewing that incident. It's lumped with several other fires throughout the state. The state's threshold to the federal government is right around $54 million. So they're trying to prove to FEMA that we do qualify, and that would open up more assistance to the county with that program.
Okay. Any more questions, Sue? Hello?
Sergeant, I just had a quick question for
Yes,
you.
sir.
When we're reviewing these homes for eligibility, we're pretty confident when we go out there that we're going to be receiving reimbursement, right? We're not going to be working on properties where we're not going to get reimbursement.
So the Tetra Tech contract is the first step in the process. You have to think about it as this is the first step that we're taking before contractors even put boots on the ground. Essentially, they go out and they assess and figure out what type of hazards are on the property, what was the property being used for. So at that point, we have a better idea of which properties are going to be eligible and which properties are not. We have about 23 parcels that we are looking at with state funding, and especially with FEMA funding. If there's any commercial development on the property, they are excluded from the program. So we have to look at these very carefully before we take that next step with the contractor.
Sure. And then I know there's, or I believe there's some allotment land out there And I would assume we're looking at that when we're determining eligibility as well.
Correct. We are working with the tribe because the way the tribe is seen by the federal government, they're seen as their own entity. So we are helping and working with the tribe, trying to make sure that those residents do qualify. I know the tribe has put in for a federal block grant to provide housing for those who lost their homes through BIA. And in order to get those trailers or those temporary housing out to the property, we have to take this step with Tetra Tech and then with the contractor to have it cleaned up and ready for those temporary housing to arrive.
Perfect. Well, thanks again for being so thorough. I know you always are. So, and I think thanks to Dexter Marr for all the work he's done on this project as well. I know he's worked very closely with you on this. So
Thank you for what you do. Appreciate it. Dan Metz. Dan?
Sorry, I had trouble unmuting. Let's see, Dan Metz, Oakhurst. On the 5E, the SHE contract, I'm not sure that I really understand what the original contract was for and why the extension is needed. I know they need more time, but why do they need more time? Did they not submit their grant requests on time? Did they have more work than they anticipated? Just exactly why do we need to extend the contract? And what does the contract cover? I assume it's a contract between the county and SHE, but what does that contract say?
County Council.
Chairman, if the Board of Supervisors has any questions about that item, Director Bax and county staff are here to answer it. Otherwise, you can ask them to contact a member of the public, or if the board or chair has any of those similar questions, and certainly they can be answered here.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jamie Bax, Community and Economic Development, and Annette Kephart can provide any information that I might miss. The 2017 CDBG grant was, as Supervisor McCauley mentioned, a rehab grant program funded through the state community development block grant. Self-help administers that grant for us. So the applications that come in from the public for rehabilitation on people's houses, they would apply through self-help, get awarded through self-help, and we work with them and the state to be able to grant those funds to those property owners. That's what we are contracted with them for. So
This is a long-term program. We've been doing this for, I don't know, as long as I can remember, back when I was on the city council, they were, self-help enterprises was around. So at least 30 plus years ago, we started this process. CDBG is one of those more successful programs that's been instituted for housing rehabilitation for specifically for low-income people who can't afford it, but they get low interest loans. In some cases, they get grants that are the debt is wiped clean. But in many cases, the funding revolves through a fund that when the houses are sold, the money that is collected for that debt, and it's put back into the program. So we still have several $1 million from many, many years ago that is revolving through that program and developing the substandard housing with better insulation, better windows that will protect against cold and heat, better HVAC units, energy retrofit, that kind of thing. So this is really a successful program. Reason I know so much about it, I was involved in it a little bit myself as a contractor. And I used to build self-help enterprises houses at least a couple of years back when I was involved in that. I had to recuse myself as a contractor or as a supervisor, so no longer do that. But am I correct in everything I've said?
that is absolutely correct. We have a different number of grant programs, but yes, this is a rehab program. Annette and I were discussing it this morning. Most recent one were for some kitchen repairs, leaky faucets, mold repairs, and the like. So it is a very successful program, and we just want to be able to implement it to the end of the contract or to the end of the grant.
And so we're extending the contract so we can spend down the funds, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Thank you. And if any member from the public wishes to contact myself or Annette for additional information, we're happy to take those calls.
Okay, does that answer your question, Dan?
Yes, it does. Thank you, Jamie, and for your explanation added as well, David.
You bet. Happy to do it. Okay, next speaker, Andrea.
Good morning. My name is Andrea Uribe, and I'm a policy advocate for Leadership Council working with communities in Madera. And I would like to comment on matters H and AD. For matter H, I would like to encourage the continual support of remote public participation during meetings. Remote public participation increases the accessibility of these meetings and allows residents that live further away and lack access to transportation to comment and have their voices heard. And for matter AD, there has not been a good opportunity for public transportation and engagement on the GSP revisions. And seeing that there will have to be revisions for the GSP for its resubmission, it is imperative to create engagement with the residents whose wells are being impacted by the continued agricultural overpumping that the GSAs are planning to allow in this subbasin for years to come. This engagement should go beyond a time period for people to submit written comments. Direct engagement with community members could more clearly ensure residents' concerns are incorporated into the plan and addressed by the GSA.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Anything further on the consent calendar? Going to bring it back to the board?
I'll move to approve the consent, removing items R and V.
Okay, done. Motion's made and second. Roll call vote, please.
Before I do the roll call, Susan O'Connor is asking if she could re-comment on an item.
I asked two or
She
three
muted-
times for,
She muted herself and couldn't get herself unmuted.
yeah, no, I'm not going to reopen the item. Let's go ahead with the vote.
Supervisor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Supervisor McCauley?
Yes.
Supervisor Walmhoff?
Yes.
Supervisor Roger?
Yes.
Motion approved 4-0, sorry. One absent.
Thank you. Next item would be item 6A.
Presentation of proclamation recognizing March 2023 as American Red Cross Month.
All right. Just handling that item. Okay, there we go.
Supervisor Rogers, how are you doing?
Good. How are you, sir?
Board, how are we doing? My name is Gerald Goldstein. I am the Central Valley Red Cross's acting chair. I'm waiting for Chanel Cheecrest from Bitwise to go away, but I will then be the chair. But I'm here on Lori Wilson's behalf, our executive director of Central Valley Red Cross. So we're currently active right now, as Supervisor McCauley knows, up in Oakhurst, doing the warming centers between actually Madera County and in Mariposa County. So with all the stuff that's going on, we're pretty active. And we're super excited that we are here for this proclamation, as we are also doing it March Red Cross Month here across the country. So I'm excited because it's like being back home, because I was here for almost 4 years and now I'm just back for a proclamation. So
Well, thank you for stepping up and taking this item. And we're just grateful for the Red Cross, a very old institution, and traditionally has been so valuable to every community in our country. And thank you for your participation in that, and all the volunteers and people who work with the Red Cross, a great organization. So we're going to present this proclamation. Let's go down and.
Can I just do a
Yes,
little
go ahead.
plug for Red Cross
Go
before we
ahead.
do? Yeah, Red Cross has been active up in the Oakhurst area for about a week and a half, initially opening as a warming center and then later opening 24 hours a day to the public. One of the complications that we've seen there, though, is the lack of volunteerism in the community. So just want to give a plug to Red Cross. Like I said, if you're interested in getting involved, reach out. It's not an overly complicated process to become a volunteer. I'm going through it myself right now. Spent about 6 hours at the Red Cross, from like 5 to midnight or something like that last week. It's not overly difficult, but you definitely want to have people there available to answer questions and help people through. So definitely encourage those that are interested to get involved. So again, thanks for being here. I really do appreciate it.
No, thank you.
Yeah, we're talking about a 140-year-old institution, and I think there's a notable quote from its founder, Clara Barton, who said, "You must never think of anything except the need and how to meet it." So what a great serving person, servant's heart she had. Go up and get a photo.
One, two.
Item 6B.
Presentation of proclamation recognizing March 2023 as Women's History Month.
I'll take this item, Mr. Chairman, if
Head.
all right, well, thank you. This is our second year proclaiming March as Women's History Month. We have a proclamation here that I'd like to read into the record. March 2023, Women's History Month, celebrating women who tell our stories. Whereas every year, the United States observes the month of March as Women's History Month and celebrates the contributions of women in society. And whereas this year's theme is celebrating women who tell our stories, recognizing women, past and present, who have been active in all forms of media and storytelling, including print, radio, TV, stage, screen, blogs, podcast, news, and social media. And whereas President Jimmy Carter issued the first presidential proclamation in 1980, declaring the week of March 8th as National Women's History Month week. Later in 1987, Congress designated the entire month of March as Women's History Month. And whereas in 2022, women's labor force participation rate for prime age women resulted in 77%, exceeding the level in 2019 of 76% and setting a new high for the share of women either working or looking for work. And whereas despite the progress, women continue to experience challenges on gender pay gaps, employment recovery, work-life balance, among many others. And whereas Madera County acknowledges, honors, and respects women for their monumental contributions to local, state, and national and global achievements. Now, therefore, be proclaimed, the Board of Supervisors of the County of Madera does hereby proclaim March 2023 as Women's History Month in Madera County. And so, because the theme this year is women's celebrating women who tell our stories, we thought who better to invite to receive the proclamation than Wendy Alexander from the Madera Tribune, who not only attends every event and participates in all of the activities happening around Madera County, but she captures those moments in her photography. And so we really appreciate her and the Tribune for what they do. And with that, we'd like to present that proclamation to the Tribune this year.
Any supervisors like? Yes, sir.
It would be inappropriate for me to comment on women's history.
No, it's for everybody.
Go ahead.
You wouldn't
No,
be here
but,
without a woman.
Yeah, but thank you for doing that, Supervisor. I've interacted with her on several occasions, just been very kind, and it really is telling the story. Being out there and doing such an important job telling the story for our local community. So thank you.
Yeah, I've known Wendy for about 15 years, maybe longer than that, really. And she's always been very kind and she does tell the story well and very accurately. And I appreciate that about a person attempting to be completely honest and, you know, and forthright in their presentation. And she does that. So she is a great example. And thank you for inviting her to receive that. We all have, of course, women in our lives that are of great importance and they each have a story. I think of my mother and my wife, my grandmother. I think of the women that have had large influence on my life. And I am what I am today because of their influence and their care for me and their wisdom and instruction in my life. And so we definitely hold women in high esteem in American society in general. I think we've come a long ways in recognizing the importance of the nuclear family and women and their role in society and in the family. Just absolutely necessary. Thank you.
And if we can do a photo outside with our banner, because we have it up.
That'd be
by the
nice. We can do
chambers.
that. Let's proceed out for, let's take a few minutes recess here.
And I'm just going to be real quick. I'll just
Yeah, go
say,
ahead.
love you, Mom. That's all I'll say.
Presentation of proclamation recognizing March 2023 as Professional Social Worker Appreciation Month.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, county staff. Steve Duckworth, Social Services Deputy Director, accompanied by Deputy Director Danny Morris and social workers Melissa Garcia and Michelle Camarena. And it's our good pleasure to stand with you and represent our staff, the Department of Social Services staff, to recognize March as Professional Social Worker Month in Madera County. Social workers have for decades been agents of change in our community and in our country. They have been at the forefront of many of the struggle for many of the rights we take for granted, including our civil rights, our voting rights, women's rights, civil rights, all those rights we take for granted. Social workers in our country have been at the forefront of the struggle. They've also been at the struggle for many of the social safety programs, safety net programs that we take for granted, such as unemployment insurance, Social Security, and others. Our social workers, this year's theme, by the way, is break the barriers. That's the theme nationally, because this Social Work Month is a national event recognized first by President Reagan in 1984 to honor the social workers across the country and the work that they do. Our social workers strive to break barriers for people that are often found at their lowest points in their lives, in crises. And they overcome those challenges and help those folks and those families live the best lives that they can. Our department currently has 82 social workers. 58 of those social workers are assigned to our Child Welfare Services division. And in the calendar year 2020, those staff, those social workers, received over 2,600 referrals, abuse and neglect of children. They maintained placements on average over 420 kids in care each month during the calendar year as well. Our team of social workers also includes 14 who are assigned to in-home supportive services program, and that's what Michelle is assigned to. She works to ensure that age, blind, and disabled individuals can remain safely in their homes so they don't, to avoid high cost, long-term institutionalization. In the calendar year 2022, our IHSS program, our caseload grew from 2,100 cases to what it ended in December of 2022 to nearly 2,500 cases. So our caseload growth in that program is exceeding state averages, and it's because the population is growing older and more people are becoming eligible for Medi-Cal. Our APS team is the smallest of our team, well, second smallest. There's 6 social workers in our Adult Protective Services team. And they investigate abuse and reports of abuse and neglect for elders and dependent adults. During the calendar year last year, they received over 1,000 reports of abuse and neglect of elders and dependent adults. And finally, we have social workers that are assigned to the QA unit, quality assurance unit, and that Melissa is assigned to quality assurance. And what they do is they strive to ensure our systems, our processes, our programs are adequate to meet the needs of the families in Madera County. So they review our work, they check our work, and when we find deficiencies in our work, we address it through training and other means. But it's their job primarily to work to ensure that our services meet the needs of the families. And I don't know if Danny, do you want to say a couple words?
Thank you, Board. Dr. Danny Morris, Deputy Director for Child Welfare Services. Like Steve said, our staff work diligently in the community. Currently, with the snow that's taking place and the impact that it has on the community up there, we've had social workers working diligently with those families to ensure their safety. When we learned of the safety in Sierra Meadows Mobile Home Park, we ensured that we had staff contacting families individually to make sure they were in a safe location. We helped relocate families, ensure their safety. We had a social worker when it first began. We learned of a family that was impacted that had small children, trying to drive up and work with the deputies to ensure those families were moved to safer locations, ensure they had safe places to stay. And so our social workers work collaboratively with our sheriff's department to ensure the safety of the community, and not just to investigate, but to ensure the safety and well-being of our community. So we appreciate them stepping above and beyond what they're expected to do to ensure that safety. And so they take to heart of being a part of the emergency response of our community. And so they want to thank the chair and the board for all the work that they do and the resources you provide our community to support them.
Danny, that's a little known aspect of what you folks do. I appreciate you pointing that out. So very good. Thank you. Excellent. Let's go out and present this.
You guys want to come out here actually so we can read the song? I think we're gonna do it in front of the table so we can read the sign.
Good thought, Chris.
Gotta throw it over here.
Matt in charge. Since I'm first back to the mic, I'll just wanted to say, it seems like there's no end to what DSS does. I was actually mentioned earlier, I was over at Red Cross speaking with their director, Trina Poitras, and she was explaining how closely she works with DSS as well. So when, people are coming in to utilize their services, they're screening them and making referrals out. And that, of course, happens because you guys are working out in the community, working with our partners. So just thanks again for everything.
Thank you for that comment. Any comment from the public on that item? Okay. Item 6D.
Presentation and update regarding the OLIVE charitable organization presented by Operations Director April Molina.
Good morning, members of the supervising board. My name is April Molina. I am the current operations director for Olive Charitable Organization. It's been a while since I've been up here. I'm a little nervous. It's been a long time. New faces. Nice to see you guys. It's always good to see new faces. I think I'm in your district, actually, Mr. Wamhoff. So just know you'll probably be hearing from me. But I just wanted to come. Nick Salinas invited me to come and share on Olive because it's been a very long time since I've been here to present. And I actually missed the proclamation in January because I had the flu. So I apologize for my absence and I didn't want to get anybody else sick. We've had enough. I use this guy. Okay, cool. Never used one of these. So we'll see how this goes. Okay, so who are we? Olive, we are a local nonprofit organization that partners with law enforcement agencies to identify, rescue, and rehabilitate victims of sex trafficking right here locally. We are actually founded by law enforcement. Our founder was Lieutenant Dan Foss of Madera Police Department. He's since moved on to Chief of Police of Nevada City, California. Olive is actually an acronym, stands for Overcoming Limitations Through Intervention, Value, and Empowerment. And we really focus on the value part of this, our whole organization. These women that we serve have been devaluized, or however you say it, dehumanized, if you want to, in such horrible ways that value is really our core. And so I'd like to introduce you to our board of directors. Actually, there on the far left is our chairman and our founder, Chief BOS. President is from Madera County Sheriff's Office, Rob Blem. Vice President is from Madera County Child Support Services. And our treasurer is Tim Rache. He works at Madera Unified School District, as does our secretary, Sylvia Anguiano. Our three directors are District Attorney Sally Moreno, Lieutenant Alicia Vidigan, and my husband, actually, Director John Molina. So, so this is our board of directors. As you can see, we're kind of stacked with law enforcement. Our close connection to law enforcement actually gives us an edge. Our next, actually, I want to pull in somebody from probation, hopefully this coming year, because it's very helpful. It also gives these women who were once prostitutes, it gives them a relationship with law enforcement in a different way. And they can see a good side, because typically when the police are called, it's always under bad circumstances. And so we try to provide them with a different circumstance with somebody that has a badge. And so far it's worked. So, so 2 years ago, we were donated, actually 3 years ago now, we were donated by a Rotarian. She hates it when I throw her name up there, but I do it anyway. Alicia Bennett. Her dad was a dentist here in Madera for 35 years. She had this dentist office empty for a long time and said, hey, I have this. I think it would be perfect for a safe house. And at first, my boss, Dan Foss, said no. And I said, Dan, there's an olive tree out front. We have to take it. So February of 2021, we opened with our first tenant. Oh, this is actually what we renovated into. These were actually rooms for examinations. There's 2 of the 5 bedrooms up there, and the living room, which you can see is used. I noticed after I took the picture, there's a cup on the table and a napkin on the other table. And I was like, well, I could have cleaned it up, but I didn't. So it's lived in, right? So, and you can see they ate In-N-Out Burger. But it's very comfortable. We try to go for comfort. There is 1 person per room. A lot of the facilities that Dan and I had actually visited before we started doing the renovations on this place, they had up to 4 people per room with 2 sets of bunk beds on either sides of the walls. And you just can't put traumatized victims in a space where they don't have any room of their own. And so we opted for 1 person per bedroom. And we actually had the Lions, the Madera Evening Lions, the Rotary, and the Seroptimist groups come in, and they actually decorated the rooms. I am not a decorator. That is not my scope. So that's why they look as nice as they do. This is our first tenant. Actually, she moved in on February 11th of 2021. And the picture on the left is before. That's the day we picked her up. And the picture on the right is 18 months later. You can see a great change in her. She has made incredible progress in the last couple of years, and she's in school to be a drug counselor. So when we found her, I don't know if you can see how well you can see her hands there in her lap. She was so nervous when I went to talk to her that she actually picked her thumbnail off and made herself bleed. That was how high of a level of anxiety she had. She was 21 years old, and they found her on the streets, and we got a call from one of our volunteers and said, I have this girl, you've got to come meet her. And we did. And 18 months later, she's in school, she's gone through rehab, she's in counseling, and she's doing so much better. You can tell just by her posture, she's doing so much better. This young lady here, we picked up a couple months ago, actually. She's beautiful, she's fun, she's 18 years old. She sent me that text message last week, actually. I'll read it out loud just for the sake of the public. It says, I know I'm only 18. I'm keeping this up because I've never felt like this in my entire life. And I never not want to feel like this. Don't mean I won't have bad days, but I won't be stuck in it for weeks or months or years. I'm going to go far as long as I keep the same mentality, which I plan to, because I know the struggle and I never want to put myself in this situation again. I won't let it. It's up. It's only up from here. I got this. I'm going to be unstoppable. Our job really is simple. We are a supportive service. What we do is we maintain a safe location. And actually a lot of that comes from the law enforcement because there's a lot of safety there. And we give the girls transportation to other resources. We actually outsource all of our resources. That keeps us from having to be a program. There's a lot of in-house programs that work really, really well. But what we have found is when they can come home and relax and just watch Netflix or watch, The Walking Dead or whatever on HBO Max or whatever it is they watch, that helps them feel normal, right? They don't feel like they're in a program. We try to stay very far away from the program feel. And so they go to rehab at Madera County Behavioral Health. They go to counseling. They go to all these other places. But when they're with us, it's a home. And that's what a lot of these women are missing, is just the home environment. And so we stay very busy with transportation and keeping the lights on and things like that. So, and that's part of my job. So what we also do, this thing, it's really great. It's called the Red Sand Project. We do it annually. Every January, we order red sand and we pass it out to the community. On the picture on the left is me with two of our survivors, actually at my church. They wanted to come and be a part of this. It's a worldwide campaign that brings awareness to the issue of human trafficking. The red sand is eco-friendly. I checked. So, and the one on the right is actually my daughter out in front of the police department. But so that what it boils down to is you get these little bags of red sand, you stick them in the cracks of the sidewalk, you snap a picture of it and post it on social media. And the red sand actually symbolizes the blood of people who have lost their lives due to human trafficking worldwide. And so it's a great way to get the community involved and bring awareness. It's great for students. Students love it. We've had probation, victim services, the Madera Unified School District, some of the teachers that have actually hit me up for sand every year. And I usually have to buy about 100 pounds of it. So, and it all goes, this year I ran out because I didn't get enough. So next year I'll get more. But this next year, we actually plan to host some events. We used to, and then COVID hit and it kind of shut it all down. But then this January, like I said, I had the flu for 2 weeks. So that kind of got shoved. We've also taken the pledge. We are part of a co-op, a valley-wide co-op. The picture there on the right is actually Deborah Rush. She's the CEO of Breaking the Chains in Fresno. And she's the one that started this campaign. And it's similar to the Fill the Boot campaign, where once a year they go out on a Tuesday, they stand on the street corner, ask people for donations. And then once that money reaches a certain level, us as an organization can write a grant to pull some of that money and use it for direct services only for victims and survivors of trafficking. This is Dan. I'm sure some of you recognize him. He also hosts educational presentations for all members of the public on tactics of a trafficker and the reality for the victim. It's a great presentation. It's actually how I got involved. I showed up to one of his presentations. It was about an hour and a half long, and I was blown back by what I found out. I had no idea how this happened. I had no idea what prostitution and on the streets was really like. And he asked for volunteers, and I raised my hand and said, how do I help? And that was 5 years ago. I started as a volunteer for him, and he made me do everything. And so, being the lieutenant of a police department, I guess you're busy. So here I am 5 years later, the director now, and doing presentations. So, and of course, on top of that, assisting the girls. So this I wanted to show you because a lot of people, this is a small community, and a lot of people don't realize how much trafficking is actually here. This is actually a website that we use in connection to law enforcement. You have to be a member of law enforcement to log in. It's created by an agency called Thorn, and it's called Spotlight. And so what I did was Thursday morning, I jumped on to Spotlight, and what it does is it gives you live ads. And you can see in California, there's almost 4 million ads online at that time at 7:30 in the morning on Thursday, with 569,000 different profiles, which means that they're using one profile for several different websites, right? So there's many websites that can be used to traffic people. And so I've obviously blurred all the pictures, but this is the state of California. Then I did the Madera Fresno area. We are kind of combined in a way because Madera is smaller. You can see that on a Thursday morning at 7:30 a.m., there are 733 ads with 300 different profiles. And I arrowed in that I actually specified Madera in the search bar at the top. And on the arrow on the right, you can see Madera specifically there for in calls and out calls, as well as Fresno. So there is an issue here. There's a big issue here. This is a Thursday morning. Imagine what a Friday or Saturday night would be like. Madera PD did a sting a while back, and I think it was a 6-hour sting. And within the first 40, I think he said 45 minutes, they arrested 10 people. And so it's a big problem here. A lot of people don't realize that there's so many women that are caught in this, and 100% of the women that we've contacted don't want to be involved in this. We have been able to make contact in just this last year, 24 victims, and we have been able to assist 24 victims. This man here, I pulled this off the public website. You can see he is the #1 charge there is human trafficking. So this is Dylan Dobbs. Madera County Sheriff's Office arrested him back in July of 2020. And we actually have a survivor who we've been in contact with the last couple of years who was actually friends with this guy on Facebook. And that is how and that's how a lot of these women get involved, is through social media. It's free to the trafficker. It costs them nothing to reach out to young, pretty girls or anybody online. And somebody who's having a bad day, if he just talks nice to her, then he will probably pull her in at some point if she allows that. So we do have a fundraiser coming up. This is my shameless plug. Every year we host a fundraiser. It's always a lot of fun. It's at San Joaquin Winery. I love that venue. It's outside. I was told I needed to start saying that because people didn't bring a jacket last year. So it is outside venue. It's a dinner auction. We sell tables, we sell individual seats. It's on Friday, April 28th from 5:30 to 8:30. It's a lot of fun. You'll get to come and hear Chief Boss talk about just trafficking in general. And then also what we're going to do this year, we usually do a survivor testimony, but this year we're going to focus on where the donor money is going. Because people ask, oh, what am I, they want to give money, but they don't know what they're giving to. So we're going to actually focus on where the money is going this year. So that's my job. I've got to make a list. It's going to be a long one because we have 2 grants. CDBG is one of them for the house in Madera, the city of Madera. And then we have a CCP grant that pays wages to myself and my assistant, Kelsey Hickman. And so the rest of it, the rest of our donor money, all 100% of it goes to direct services of the girls. And whenever they come in, there's often criminal history, there's court issues, there's always these things. And some of these classes cost money, right? Well, they don't have any, they have nothing. I had the last survivor I picked up had nothing but her purse on her. And so she didn't even have ID. And so, we would just like to invite you to come. Tables are $5.25 and individual seats are $75 a piece. You can go on Eventbrite and just search Olive Fundraiser and it should pop right up. And I expect to see all of you there. How do you like that? So anyway, I just wanted to say thank you for allowing me to come talk to you guys, give you an update. It's been a long couple of years, but we're rolling and we're rolling and we're rolling, and we are excited about the future of Olive. We've expanded into Fresno a little bit. We have a new safe house in Fresno because it's not always safe to keep people in the county you find them in. So, and that's it. I'm all done.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from board?
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
And it's something that I have, in my 12 years of law enforcement, I have encountered numerous times in Fresno. And when I first started, the people who are being trafficked, the victims, were once suspects. And I'm so glad that, through education, that we have turned turn that tide and really recognize these victims for what they are. They are victims. Most of them are children. And so I'm so thankful for your work and your passion. And it's people like Alicia Bennett who donate a safe house and to make these types of things possible. And you really highlighted the word value for these women because that's how they become perpetual victims, because the people who traffic them devalue them. They devalue them to the point where they don't need to be handcuffed to the wall. They feel so devalued that they feel like their trafficker is the only person that they can rely on. And law enforcement for a long time did not do a good job. And obviously we're turning the tide on that. But I just want to thank you for all the work that you're doing. And this is something that's really, really special, because these are mostly, I wouldn't say mostly, but there are a lot of children. And even then they're young adults. Like you mentioned, they're 21, 18, but they start out a lot of times when they're 14, 15. See it out there. And these are true victims, and we need to do everything that we can to make sure that these children victims are being taken care of. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you
Ye-
for your work, April, and we have a certificate to give you here. Let's go out front and get a photo.
Supervisor Rogers, I have two people online for public comment.
Okay, go ahead with what's the name?
Sue O'Connor and John Farrow.
Okay, go ahead, Sue.
I just want to say what a wonderful program presentation that was. And I'm just so happy to hear of this service in Madera County and also in Fresno County. And I also want to ask about the sting operation that was mentioned. Is that something that the county has influence over, how often something like that happens? Because my heart tells me we could do a sting operation every day and catch 10 people every day. And I'm wondering how much emphasis as a county we're able to put on this issue.
That is not under our purview. That is the law enforcement purview, and for the cities and the county sheriff, who is a separate elected official. So they decide when that occurs. And we don't have anything to do with it other than we supply the resources and the logistics and the things that they need to do their jobs well. And that's about it. Jay, you have any comment on that?
I would just say that historically in Madera County, there's been a lot of cooperation, especially since Dan and April started Olive. And another thing you have to keep in mind is if you're going to do a sting like that, if we're going to bring people out, you will have had to have made a liaison with Olive or with Breaking the Chains, so that if a girl or a young man wants to come out, you actually have a place to put them, because there's nothing worse than arresting their trafficker and then having him or her get out in 24 hours and they're right back in the rut, and then they don't trust you the next time. But yeah, there's a lot to be coordinated when you do something like that.
Yes, thank you for the comment. I knew you'd have something more pertinent than what I had to say. Thank you very much.
John
Okay,
Farrell?
excuse me?
John Farrow also had a comment.
Okay, John?
Yeah, I had a question for April. I had Dan Foss speak a couple of years back at one of our meetings in the mountains here. And it looks like it's time to get a refresher. But I noticed that April said this was a charitable organization. So the question I'm kind of would like to get some answers on is, as a charitable organization, for the women that are come into this program, are they accountable? Are they held accountable? Are there like drug testing and alcohol testing and certain requirements that they have to abide by to live in these safe houses? And it sounds like you're really providing a service to get them back on track and job training and so forth and so on. But are you under obligation by any state laws? For example, like with a homeless situation, you can't force a homeless person to go into some kind of a rehab program unless they committed an illegal act, and they can be released in 72 hours. So I'm just kind of interested in a little bit on the background of this, and I'll contact you and reach out to you later and maybe have you come up and speak to our group. So thanks.
And if I answer?
Go ahead.
So as a charitable organization, we don't, so we do drug testing, right? And because it does happen, when somebody comes back positive for any kind of substance, then we talk to them about getting into a rehab. So oftentimes when they first come in, we always drug test first thing, so we know what we're dealing with. And then from there, depending on the drug, oftentimes it's marijuana or meth. And so meth lasts in your system 6 to 7 days. Marijuana is 30 to 45 days. So what we do is we put a timeline on that. And we tell them, okay, now in 6 days, you should be clean for meth. We'll test you again. And in 30 to 45 days, you should be clean for THC. So, we'll test you. And I test at random. It's always random. They never know. I always tell them, hey, I have a gift for you. And I hand over a urine test. And I actually contacted Sandra Mendez at probation to find out what they use. So we got something comparable to that. And so it's pretty accurate. And the thing is when they do test positive, 100% of the times they admit to using. And I'm like, okay, well, what were the steps that led to you using? Like, what was going on? And it's oftentimes a trigger. And so what we do is we deal with that therapeutically through counseling, through life coaching. And then from there, it's recommended that they go into rehab. We don't force anything. We can't force anything, because the minute you do, you have turned into their pimp. And so we try very hard to make their recovery their own. They get to make their own decisions. And the thing is when they come into our safe house, they want to get better. They know there's something wrong. They want to get off drugs. They want to stop using. They want to stop prostituting. They want to stop. And so our goal is to come alongside them and guide. And it's worked. It's worked a lot. And those drug tests do keep them accountable, but it's them being accountable really to themselves. And I think that's what they need more than being accountable to us.
Thank you.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Any other comment from the public? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the next item. We're going to do our public hearings, item 7A.
Hearing for discussion and consideration to adopt a resolution annexing territory in Maintenance District Number 22 into the Zone of Benefit A thereof for APN 064070009.
Okay, go ahead, Andrea.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Andrea Saldati, Deputy Director with Public Works. I am here in lieu of Mr. Jared Carter, who is at your Incident Command Center for the winter storm that we're dealing with right now. So this is a public hearing for the adoption of a resolution annexing a parcel into MD 22A. The parcel does sit on the border of the MD 22A boundary. The parcel is also part of a parcel merger in order to make a parcel within MD 22A larger for the expansion of a commercial business, which is Capital Pipe. Everything has already been approved other than this resolution. At the conclusion of this resolution, the applicant will be required to purchase sewer units, which they are aware of and the district does have. So for MD 22A, they do have the capacity for this. And other than the resolution, everything else has been completed to do the annexation and the parcel merger.
Okay, so any questions? I'm going to open the public hearing on this item. Any public to make a comment or ask a question? Anyone online? Okay. I don't see anyone coming forward, so we're going to close the public hearing, bring it back to the board. What's your pleasure?
Move to approve.
Motion made.
Second.
Let's do a roll call vote.
I'm sorry, I totally missed that.
Made,
Too quick for
second,
you.
second on Supervisor Wamhaugh.
Supervisor McCauley,
Yes.
Supervisor Wamhoff,
Yes.
Supervisor Gonzalez.
Yes.
Supervisor Rogers.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you.
Good. Item 6E.
Discussion and direction by action of Board of Supervisors, if desired, related to the submittal of a sustainable transportation planning grant application for an Oakhurst mobility study.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Jamie Bax again with Community and Economic Development. Staff is seeking direction on applying for a notice of funding availability through Caltrans. This is Sustainable Transportation Grant Planning Grant Program to prepare a mobility study for Oakhurst. We would focus on the areas of State Route 41, 49, Road 426, would include sidewalks, bus stops, different types of multimodal transportation resources, trails. So we are seeking direction to prepare a grant application, apply for the grant. We're familiar with this program. We were actually awarded a grant through Caltrans on the Avenue 12 station relocation project. So we've become familiar with the staff over at Caltrans, and they're great to work with. It'll involve substantial public outreach if we are awarded this grant. And if you do give direction and we are awarded the grant, we'll be back before your board with a contract with Caltrans. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions from the board on item 6E? Any comments?
Yeah, I just want to say I'm really excited for this opportunity to go into the Oakhurst area and take a look at how we can improve, transportation in the area. Specifically with Yosemite National Park making a move to put in a permanent reservation system, which I think they'll be implementing in a year or two, creates a huge need and a huge strain on, the gateway communities. So improving transportation infrastructure there is a great thing. And then as far as the trails go, sidewalks, I think it's something I've heard for years on end. So thank you for putting this together. Very excited for it, as I said. Looking forward to the results and how we may be able to use this planning grant to implement some projects down the line.
Any comment from the public? I'll bring it back to the board. What's your pleasure?
I'll second.
Motion made in second. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Gonzalez.
Yes.
Supervisor Wamhaugh,
Yes.
Supervisor McCauley,
Yes.
Supervisor Rogers.
Yes.
Motion approved 4-0.
Okay, item 6F.
Madera Community Hospital Agreements. Discussion and consideration of entering into an agreement with Kaufman Hall and Associates and Madera Community Hospital in the amount of $250,000 for the development of a report that demonstrates the preliminary business case and future financial trajectory of Madera Community Hospital under the alternative operating configuration scenarios for fiscal year 2022-23, and authorize the chairman or county CAO to sign.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Joel Begay, County Administrative Office. There are two recommended actions for your board to consider today. The first would effectively make the county an equal party to the agreement that Madera Community Hospital has with their consultant Kaufman Hall. Essentially, been tasked to provide a feasible hospital turnaround plan to be delivered no later than 60 days from the time of execution. Equal party means that the county will be an equal recipient of the report and any data and information that has been gathered or concluded as part of that process. It also will allow the county to make direct payments for the estimated cost of $250,000 to Kaufman Hall. The second recommended action will direct staff to develop an agreement between Madera Community Hospital and the county so that it allows information sharing that's necessary for the Kaufman Hall agreement or for the Kaufman Hall to deliver their deliverables. It's necessary due to the license status of the hospital being in suspense, that it would, the information necessary from the state would have to be requested from our public health department. With that, absolutely for question. I believe County Council wants to add some comments to that.
Yes, thank you, Joel and Chair, members of the board. Just to clarify further, it's really not needed, but I'll just go ahead and do that. Number one, on section 5 of the addendum that's before you, it incorporates a business associate agreement, and this is one that the board has previously approved. And what that does is it allows the county to share information. In this case, the business associate would be Kaufman Hall, and to provide patient, very sensitive data to Kaufman Hall, and the state would see that there is an agreement if there's a breach, or just how they handle that data is extremely important and set forth in that master agreement. So the second part of the request from the hospital, we received a similar BAA agreement, and we are tailoring that. And the request is, in that situation, the county would be the business associate and the hospital would be the covered entity. They would be providing information to the county, where then we would be required under laws to protect their information as well in the similar manner. So if that's helpful, that just explains it. Number 5 is for Kaufman Hall to treat our data a specific way. And then the second part is for the county to treat the hospital's data a specific way, which will be executed separately and is not on the backup because it was provided on Friday, and we want to make sure it's edited correctly. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions regarding this item? Board. Hearing none, we'll go out to the public. Any public comment on this item? There's a familiar face coming to the mic.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And my name is Stel Manfredi, address Madera. I'm the excuse me. I'm the vice chair of Madera Community Hospital Board of Trustees. And on behalf of them, I'm representing them, but I want to thank a few people. I want to thank Dr. Paul, who's cooperated in everything we've done, Sarah Boss, Joel Bouguet, and of course your CAO, Jay Varney. But most of all, you folks. This is a trying time for the county, Madera, and it is for everybody. But I think that you have stepped up to the plate more than graciously. This study, no matter who does it and who pays for it, which you are, we thank you again, will be needed in the path that we choose, that you help support. I think that this firm is well regarded from anybody who knows anything about hospitals in this state. And we are on one path as a board of trustees. We want to get this hospital reopened, whatever that path may be. And I think this will give us options. It'll talk about the feasibility. It'll talk about what we really need at the ground level to do this. I'm here representing the Board of Trustees and to thoroughly thank you and your staff for your cooperation. This is a big deal, not only to the hospital, it's a big deal to the residents of this community. As you know, we are now the only second hospital in the 58 counties, the only second county in the 58 counties not to have an acute hospital. One is up north, I believe it's Alpine, but I'm not 100% sure. It's a very small county, 25,000. And we can't let that happen forever. Thank you very much. And hopefully you will approve this agreement. Thank you. Unless
Thank you,
there's any
Stel.
questions. Okay, appreciate
Any
it.
questions? Okay, thank you. Bill, another familiar face.
Yes, familiar face and good morning, Mr. Chairman and board members. Welcome to Supervisor McCauley and Wimhoff, who I haven't got to speak before in front of this body, county staff. I'm here today to speak against this proposal for you to fund this study. I share the concern that Mr. Manfredi does, the members of this community and county and the board to reestablish hospital operations here. You know, I have a lifelong commitment to medical services in this county. I have before me a letter that Mr. Rogers sent to the Board of Trustees of the hospital in February that the county hired the consultants, Force 10 partners, to look into the viability and financial situation of Madera County and asking their participation. Is this a correct reflection of what the county did in February and that they are in fact on board with Madera County on this project?
Go ahead, Jay.
Morning, Bill. The board did approve that letter. We did send it to the hospital and we do have Force 10 under a retainer.
Okay. So that the under retainer means that that is taking place and occurring.
Under retainer means that we've placed a certain amount of money out there to withhold their services. And at this point, we are not having them move forward until the board makes a decision on this.
All right.
In front of us today.
I encourage this action because this is an objective look and investigation into the practices of the hospital board and its operations in the last 5 years. Suffice it to say, I've had numerous contacts from people that I've worked with recently and previously at Madera Community. 2019, I provided anesthesia at the hospital. I had 2 surgeons at that time come up and tell me after the release of Mr. Rayner from his position that he was the only person that had a sizable and knowledgeable business plan to carry the hospital forward out of what had been years of failed business plans. And they had no faith in the board and Ms. Paolinelli as being a qualified CEO of this hospital. I'm a clinician. I know Ms. Paolinelli. She's a clinician. In many people's minds, in my mind, she was not appropriate to be selected as a CEO of a multi-million-dollar complex healthcare organization. In addition, I'm going to say what nobody else has said. In the last year, 2022, Madera Community suspended all surgical services for 5 to 6 months and could only perform emergency C-sections, neglecting many, many dozens and hundreds of elective procedures because their autoclave, their sterilizing equipment, did not pass state inspection. People that work there have come up and told me in recent weeks, they reported to Ms. Paolinelli for months that this equipment was deficient and needed replacement, and this was not attended to. This is an example of mismanagement and malpractice of the equipment and operating in a hospital that this board and the administrator has failed. A surgeon in town told me that every month that they could not provide these surgical services, it cost the hospital $2 million in revenue. Now, who's going to look at this? A consultant that they want you to pay for, or a consultant that you are going to pay for? I ask for objectivity. The last thing that I want to say today, I said on December 29th when I was here, I have no grievance against Mr. Poitras. Mr. Poitras, however, should not participate in any vote of county funds to another board of trustees for the financial misgivings or failures of that board. He should not have a vote and it should be recused from. I want the success of the hospital. I want whatever solution is proposed to be a lasting and viable solution. And each and every one of you of your districts not only owes responsibility or vote for the county's money, not to the county, but to the constituents of your districts as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Any other comment? Dr. Paul, come ahead.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the board. Simon Paul, Health Officer. I just wanted to give a quick update that's also related to the current item. In the last week, there were 2 town halls, both here and in Fresno County for the community, hopefully help with answering questions and also helping with people get linked to care. One issue that came up from Senator Caballero, she mentioned 2 things. One is that state now estimates that to keep any other hospitals from going bankrupt, they need an estimated $1.5 billion through the end of December to keep them all afloat. So this is a large and important issue at the state level. And she also mentioned, raised a conversation about reasons that Madera Community Hospital got into problems. Was it related to Medi-Cal rates, private provider rates? And I think that makes clear that we need data to be able to put forth a proposal, right? If there is money from the state, these billions of dollars to keep hospitals going, that's a very straightforward proposal. We need this much to stay open. But reopening a hospital, we need much more information on what are feasible plans to be able to suggest them and ask for funds to approve it. So I think that the town hall also made that clear, the importance of a real assessment of what's needed to reopen the hospital and make the hospital financially viable. As far as other things, just quickly, the EMS situation in the county seems stable. There haven't been problems that I've heard of. We've been working with Madera Community Hospital. We talked about several months ago on improving patient record flow to emergency rooms, labor and delivery. We're still working on that. There's a proposal to provide sort of 24/7 access to their records. But this is also playing out and being helpful working with Camarena, because Camarena patients now also have to transfer to Fresno frequently. So I've been talking with the obstetrics department in Fresno, and they're working with Camarena to try and also work on their data exchange to improve the flow of information as more and more patients are going back and forth between counties. So that's my quick update, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Dr. Paul? Okay, thank you. Thanks, appreciate it. Any other public comment? Go ahead, Jay.
Chairman, since Dr. Paul brought up the town halls, I just wanted to add that one of the other reasons why the county staff is recommending joining in a plan is 2 things. Frankly, if we're paying for it, it's going to meet our needs or it's not going to be accepted, is my point of view. But the main thing is at the state level, with this being such a broad group of institutions possibly facing failure, one of the things that Assemblymember Sawyer brought up in our town hall was that the state was looking at making a certain amount of funding. I believe it was around $20 million available for potentially for our hospital or for other hospitals, but for any hospital to access that money, they would have to have a hospital improvement or hospital recovery plan in place before they were considered. So it is a little unusual to enter an agreement like this. However, in so many of those contracts, there's a line that says time is of the essence. Well, unfortunately, we find ourselves in a position where time is definitely of the essence here. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So just for clarification, and I think Joel can answer this. So in this agreement, the county as a party is privy to the entire report. So whatever comes of it, we have full access to the data, to the report. Correct?
That is correct, Supervisor. And just to add to Jay's point, we did review in detail the Kaufman Hall agreement. It's not attached here simply because we don't have that contractual relationship with Kaufman Hall yet, but we did review the deliverables. Each of the deliverables were analysis that we would have requested for STEN to conduct with. And as far as the county is concerned, so the hospital's main goal, stated goal is to reopen the hospital. We all want that to happen if it was feasible and if it was sustainable. And that's the key thing. Kaufman Hall would look at what's the feasible and sustainable components of the hospital, if any, would be recommended in a turnaround plan. And as far as what Jay looked at, the long-term viability of hospital services in the county, whether that includes MCH or some version of it countywide, the information gleaned from this would be useful in that analysis as well, because the patient data won't lie. Where people take services won't lie. That will still be part of that review.
In your opinion, we have Force 10 on retainer in Kaufman Hall is the one the hospital selected. You know what I'm looking for there as far as the fiduciary and impartiality in this circumstance. Do they have any relationship that we're unaware of that would preclude an honest?
Right. So they both do very similar things. They're both reputable. We did research on Force 10. They were both involved in the same Watsonville and Pajaro Valley Healthcare District deal, although they were in different sides. 410, I believe, represented the hospital that was failing, that repackaged and restructured the hospital that made it possible for somebody to take it over, being the healthcare district. Our understanding was Kaufman Hall was representing the other side of that. So these are firms that have former hospital CEOs and experts and financial experts in it. They produce the same product. They're both reputable. We did hear from the state folks that they, although it's not a formal approval, they did approve of Kaufman Hall being involved in this review. They had favorable things to say about Kaufman Hall. So, but that said, like they're two separate firms. I'm sure they've, either cooperated or locked horns in some manner in the past, in this industry.
Right. And I'm just going to be forthright here, what Bill alluded to is he's not the first person that I've heard say that. And there's been longstanding members of this community who have approached me about their concerns about her leading that organization. And so, I just want to make sure there's no conflict of interest in the organization that we're choosing to evaluate a circumstance where she's involved.
Right. And I think this is just my personal opinion, so I don't want to, I think based on the deliverables, it would be very hard if the deliverable is how to operate or reopen this hospital in a feasible manner. I think for them, for their own firm's reputation, they have to deliver an impartial analysis, right? Because the other question to be answered is how much money will it take?
Well, they're also liable as a fiduciary, right?
Right.
For an
And
audit.
I would assume so, yes.
Yeah.
And the reality is, I think, it's been stated in those deliverables that, it would identify what configuration, what's the financial projection if you take option 1 or 2 or 3. In our assessment, at least based on that, it would be very hard to sway that data, right? It's either feasible based on the reimbursement rates, or it's going to be feasible based on if you do X, Y, and Z. And in our assessment, those were the same questions we had. We would have asked Force 10. We felt comfortable making this recommendation.
Mr. Chairman, one other thing is,
Yes.
it's our understanding that hospital still faces the possibility of having to declare bankruptcy. The hospital was doing this on their own. It's possible that the study would be either interrupted or maybe totally foregone. In this case, should the hospital declare bankruptcy, the study will continue and the county will receive the information.
Okay, which we would need anyway if we were going to move forward with any kind of discussion on healthcare, Madera County, an acute care center. Okay, yes.
And just to be clear, it's the county admin's position that there are no issues of impartiality when it comes to either Kaufman Hall or Forest 10, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Bobby.
Yeah, I was just hoping, I know this item is just one piece in the scope of what we're trying to do, which is really evaluate medical services throughout the county. Which is part of why we're keeping Force 5, I think, on retainer, is so we can do some additional evaluation down the line. I was just hoping you might be able to kind of speak to that a little bit.
Cut them in half, they're Force 10.
Yes, Supervisor, it's a good question. So we did keep them on retainer, and just to clarify, if we don't give them deliverables, they're not billing, they're just on retainer. And really what's actually happening right now, so we have, it's a complex issue, right? So both Dr. Paul and Sarah we're looking at it also from a regional, where do we go from here perspective. What they are preparing is not a work order, but a set of deliverables for Force 10 to review, look at it from a global perspective. So an option for the county is to utilize Force 10 for the global review of, healthcare services on all areas, not just in the valley, but including analyzing what could be done, in the mountains. And then the idea, at least, why it's important that the county be an equal recipient of the data and the information gathered from the Kaufman Hall studies, that some of the information gleaned there can be married into that analysis. And
So they'll have an opportunity to now analyze anyway.
Right.
What the circumstances are.
right, because what's important too is that looking at the market, right? What market did MCH have or did not access? Those kinds of questions, or potential market to make it feasible and profitable in the long run. So those kinds of things could influence what we do for the rest of the county, whether or not MCH gets reopened.
And the last question I have, and I apologize if I just missed it on the backup, but where are we pulling these funds from to pay for the study? Is that going to be ARPA dollars or?
That would be our recommendation. So our follow-up, if your board approves this agreement, is to follow up next week with a budget adjustment
Right.
to appropriate the funds for the study from the Rescue Plan Act.
Okay. Any other public comment? Not, I'll close the public comment portion. Did you have something else you wanted to say, Bill? Yeah, come ahead. No problem.
Your microphone.
Hold on.
Organized event. Mr. Manfredi alluded to, the hospital still operates as a business month to month. Their current operating budget, he indicated, with employees on staff, accounts receivables coming in, is a budget of about $900,000 a month. Pay security, pay accounting people, pay maintenance people to keep the plant stable. If you're funding a $900,000 a month budget, and you're going to be able to do that with the money that's coming in and being recovered from the state, then I propose that the plan that they come forward with, they should be able to pay for at $250,000. That is a very small amount of money compared to the money that they're operating and anticipate receiving over the next several months. The other caution I have is taking money from ARPA. We have to always consider what ARPA was set aside for, what the goal is of ARPA, and the projects that the county had previously described for those ARPA monies. So $250,000 isn't that much. But I will tell you, if any kind of bailout comes out that had been mentioned previously, like $7.5 million of ARPA monies for the hospital, that just would blow my mind. Is totally irresponsible if this board voted for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any further public comment? And I'll bring it back to the board, and
Mr. Chair, I'll move to
Yeah.
approve.
motion is made to approve. Second,
I'll second.
in second. Have a roll call vote.
Supervisor Gonzalez.
Yes.
Supervisor Wamhaugh,
Yes.
Supervisor McCauley,
No.
Supervisor Rogers.
No.
Motion fails for lack of a majority.
Okay, so we'll have to come back with different plan on that. Sometimes it's hard to know what to do, you know?
Five G or six G.
Thank you.
Second reading to adopt an ordinance repealing ordinance number 701 and reaffirming and reenacting ordinance number 530G pertaining to the compensation and benefit provisions for members of the Board of Supervisors.
Move to approve.
I'll second. And we go to public comment. Any public care to comment on this item?
Yes, we have Sue O'Connor.
I just wanted to express my appreciation of the board bringing this back and rolling it back, honestly, especially since it is in response to the community feedback that you got. I think that was the most exciting part for me, was that the community was involved and you responded to that, and that's how it should work. And so I appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment from the public? We have anyone else online? John, go ahead.
Just had to unmute here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we got you.
Okay, yeah, I just want to dovetail on what Sue said. Thanks so much for bringing it back. Just ready for it to be repealed. But thanks so much for bringing it back.
Thank you, John. Any other comment from the public? Okay, County Council.
Yes, thank you, Chair and members of the board. Just as was mentioned at the introduction, the Board of Supervisors salary will be 41.2% in effect for the judges of Superior Court if this is approved and goes into effect 60 days later, and 43.26% of a judge of Superior Court in the 6 year of service, with an additional 500 per month for the chairman being the chairman of the board, with also the addition of the ability to not take any of that salary if that's any supervisor's desire moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Any question from the board at this point? Okay, the roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Gonzalez,
Yes.
Supervisor Rogers.
Yes.
Supervisor McCauley,
Yes.
Supervisor Wamhoff,
Yes.
motion approved 4-0.
Okay, thank you. Passes. Supervisors and staff reports. Supervisor. Go
Ready
ahead.
for the sun. That's it.
That's great. Let's see. I attended the RHA. Go ahead.
Last night, attended the Republican Party of Madera County at the Pizza Factory in the Ranchos, and just give an update to the folks there of what's happening in the county and some of the more important items that have come up in my 2 short months tenure. So.
There you go. Supervisor?
Just that there will be a International Women's Day celebration on Thursday over at Matilda Torres. There'll be some performances, some food, some ceremonial items, and that's from 5:30 to 7:30. Don't quote me on the time, but it's after 5. And again, that's at Matilda Torres School for International Women's Day. And then the public's invited to join.
Thank you, Letty. CAO?
Nothing further to report, Chairman.
No report, Chair. Thank you.
The clerk?
Karen will be here for your next meeting.
Announce the tacos?
The
Taco truck?
taco truck is outside for anyone who wishes to indulge.
All right. Okay, with that, let's see, we can do agenda review after lunch.
And Chair, there is no legislation on today's agenda, just to mention
Right.
for those online. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay, with that, this meeting is adjourned.